everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm showing you an art journal page that I made on the Art Joy of Sharing live stream show. That's our sister channel where we live stream every Thursday morning at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. And this month in Art Joy of Sharing, which is our art community, if you haven't joined Art Community, you can go down below the video and there'll be a link. Just click on that. You have to be a member of Facebook, and then you answer the questions when they come up, and that's all there is to it. It's free. It's just some place where we go and share art. And we also have challenges every month. One of the challenges is a mood board challenge. And the mood board is just a set of pictures, right? A set of pictures with some colors, and you're inspired by them sometime during the month to make something. It doesn't have to be an art journal page. It could be, regular art. It could be an ATC or a tag or whatever. And you're just using those pictures and colors to be inspired to make something. So the other thing that we have going on each month in Art Joy of Sharing Art Community is a theme. And this month we're talking about mediums. And mediums can include anything from, different types of colorizing things like, acrylic paints to watercolors to, weird stuff like mica shimmer powders and all that stuff. And what I've been focusing on in mediums is like all the different acrylic mediums that there are to create texture and interest on your art. So I started this page early, and I did a stylized drawing of a mom and a kid, and then a little dog in pencil, and then I went over it with an illustration brush pen, which I thought was a Pentel brush pen, which is a permanent India ink. It was not the right pen. Sorry. So I ended up having a lot of smearing, and that's why the figures seem kind of gray. I went back in and I put on some white onto the faces and things so that I would make sure to be able to recover from that terrible smearing of the ink. But the other thing I did, and the reason that I started it early, was because I put some different mediums on it, and I was talking about different weird texture mediums like fiber paste, grit paste, glass bead gel, the type that make different types of textures on your art. And so on the heart, I put glass bead gel, and then in the background in some areas, I put some grit paste. And then I also used light molding paste through a stencil in a couple different places, just adding these mediums to texturize the page. And I needed that to dry. That was the reason that I started early. So you didn't see me drawing this. Usually you would on a video like this, but I did draw it, I promise. But what I was talking about was the mediums. So everything is pretty much dry at this point. And I started with acrylic paint, and the colors from Dina Wakley were really good choices for this month's mood board. I had lemon, cheddar, lime, evergreen, olive, blushing, and Sedona, I think were the colors I had out. And also some, sky, because there was a little bit of blue on the mood board. And then some white gesso. So I painted over everything in the background with a layer of acrylic paint to start out with. And that kind of sealed up all the mediums if there was anything that needed to be sealed. I painted over all the different textures, and even as I was painting, you could see where the grit paste was. Grit paste is a sandy-like medium that comes from Ranger. It's new to me, and I hadn't used it before, so I just wanted to see what it would do. And now I'm painting over the glass bead gel. Glass bead gel has literally little glass beads inside of the gel that create a bumpy, kind of a soft, bumpy texture, and also sometimes gave you a little bit of shimmer because it's glass. I painted over the areas that had the raised texture with the light molding paste from Golden through a stencil. And the next thing I did was I took some ink pads, and these are Distress ink pads. I think the colors I used were faded jeans, dried marigold, or else maybe the marmalade one, and the peeled paint, which is the olive colored one. And I just dragged those over the page, and it hit the top of the texture wherever there was texture to kind of give it a highlight. Because the idea behind this whole month is talking about how you use these mediums. So I thought that was pretty interesting. It did highlight them. You know, it kind of made the areas where the grit paste is darker. Excuse me, because the ink pads that I used were ones that were darker colors than the background. I also spritzed it with a little bit of water. Distress ink pads are water reactive, so I wanted it to kind of go down in within the texture. And then when I painted over the heart, which had the glass bead gel on it, then I took a baby wipe and I wiped off the top of it, the top of the texture, to try to get some of those glass beads to shine through. So now I'm bringing out more texture using a Payne's Gray Inktense pencil, adding some shading around those square brick areas, the cobblestoney stencil that I had on there. And that brings out the texture even more, of course, because I'm really getting a dark color down within the texture. And I'm blending that with a water brush. I also got out this orange Stabilo All pencil and went around that texture up there with that and blended it out with the water brush. And that's starting to really add some interest. So I'm going to paint and colorize the figures. And I decided for the skin tone, because this has so much peach and pink type, orangey pinky type colors in the mood board, that it would be a Caucasian person. So I'm using some Neo Color 2 water soluble crayons. These are great for doing color skin tones because there's so many good colors that are going from light to dark, and there's a lot of variety. I could do this with paint too. It doesn't have to be the Neo Color 2, but I tend to grab those when I'm doing skin tones. I like to blend them. I put a little bit of white gesso on my brush and let that blend in with the stuff, the crayon-y stuff. It's like a water-soluble, but yet still waxy type of a medium. And just blending that out, trying to make a little bit of highlight and shadow on the skin. A couple different colors. Sometimes I write it down on my palette and pick it up with the brush. Sometimes I write it directly onto the surface and then blend it with the brush. You could also just leave it as a crayon look if you wanted to, if you like that scratchy look. So there is texture grit paste, a little bit on the larger figure's dress and a lot on the smaller figure's dress. So I'm getting that kind of scratchy look anyway because of the texture. And when you see the close-ups at the end where I really brought the camera in close, you'll be able to see those different textures of paste that are on there and what it did, how it looked up close. Because of course when you're looking from far away, it's not as easy to see all those fine details. So I'm just continuing to color with my crayons, blending it out and adding color here and there. I decide that the dog is going to be white, and I did add some white gesso to it and let it dry there. And I did paint the ear that kind of Sedona rusty red color. Then I put out some sky, some cheddar, some lime, and some lemon. Sounds like I'm making fruit salad or something. I took a ball stylus tool, and made dots of those different colors on the dog. So now the dog's name is Spot because he's covered with spots. So I thought it would be fun. So what's this page about? What's it inspired by? Well, there was a photo on the mood board that had a mother and child. And of course, in the month of May, which this is the May Mood Board Challenge, there is Mother's Day. And so I was just kind of representing all the types of motherly love that you might find, uh, you know, loving being a mom, loving being a pet parent, loving being the parent of a child loving their mom or their maternal figure, um, you know, all the caretaking and stuff that we celebrate in the month of May. So that's what the page was about. Even though Mother's Day's past now, it's still within this month, and there was that one picture. Um, there's a lot of interesting pictures on that mood board. There's one for Nurse Appreciation Week. There's one for um, denim celebration. That's one of the days in May. There's May the 4th be with you. So there's a Star Wars guy on there, a little stormtrooper. The Lilia Valley, which is, I believe, the flower for May, and there's some peaches because peaches come in a can and they're put there by a man who lives in a factory downtown. You know, whoops, that's a song. Sorry. There must have been something about peaches for May. I don't know. Anyway, it was all inspired by celebrations of those things that happen in May. So I put some white polka dots on the dress, using a little bit of white Posca pen. Then I got out the black Posca pen and I'm touching up lines because I put the illustration lines on there early so that you could see them, because I wanted you to be able to see the drawings that were on there. And so, of course, when you paint over with either crayons or acrylics or whatever you're doing, you're going to mess up some of the lines. So you have to come back in and go over them a little bit. And this time I used a paint pen, which is not going to run. So I hope you guys are enjoying this May art journal page. This is a different one of my art journals that hasn't been completed yet. I think the page is made out of 300-pound watercolor paper, and it goes inside with ring bound, so you see there's 2 dots, and I believe it's 10 by 10 square. It's a journal that I made myself. It says in 2017, and it still has blank pages in it. So that just goes to show that yes, I do make journals. No, I don't complete them. So I'm still working on trying to complete some of the journals that are on my shelf, half done. So this works towards that idea. So now I've come back in with the pencil again, and I'm darkening out some areas, just highlighting the texture again, and doing some mark making with the pencil. It's Payne's gray. It's not black, although it does look kind of black, but it's like a really, really dark blue, which is nice instead of always using black, to use a dark blue. I decide that I will use up the rest of these dots of paints by coloring in some of these little square shapes that are part of the texture with the paints, since I didn't want to, waste them, and I thought it would be interesting to add a little bit of those colors in. Those colors are all through the page, so it's balanced. It's got the square texture in 3 areas, and you try to repeat things around the page. So then I decided more mark making was necessary. Did some scribble writing, which you can't read but adds a design element. And then I also circled some of my little dots that I'd put on there with the fatter Posca pen. White Posca pen. I like to just make dots with it. It's fun. Dots are fun. So yeah, if you like this, give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment or question below. Subscribe to my channel, and of course you can always join my channel membership for $1.99 a month. That's less than your coffee, and you get exclusive content on the 15th a real-time lesson of a project, and then in addition a quick version of it as well if you don't have time to watch the real-time one. And that stuff just stays there in the members tab, and as long as you're a member you can view it. So go and join that if you want to. Yeah, a few more little white dots. I used some water on some of those other bits, and yeah, I think it's done. So that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.